Hello, fifth graders. Welcome to another exciting week of exploring the instruments of band. This week you have the awesome privilege of learning about the woodwind section. Here's one. There's a lot of variety in the wind section, so I'm going to bet you see something today that sparks interest for you.
Hey, before we start though, I'd like to do a show and tell if I could.
Ooh, show and tell.
Yay, show and tell, just like kindergarten. Best thing. You might remember our joke of the week from the double bass lesson, which was, what type of bass did Darth Vader play? The rebel bass?
Nice.
Waka, waka, waka. Well, Ms. Kerr, you also remember her, was inspired by that corny joke and painted this for me as a thank you for being her mentor during her student teaching this fall.
Oh, excellent.
So check out this.
The rebel bass.
Vader and his rebel bass. Isn't
Tell
that
us
cool?
what are
In
the
my
rebel
Bellingham
basses?
High school colors too. So
Awesome.
this will be proudly displayed. I can't wait to hang it up in the classroom and Bellingham High School. And if you end up in orchestra or band at BHS, maybe you'll get to see in person someday.
Sweet.
Also, we know some of you have asked about Ms. Kerr, and we've invited her back to visit. So be on the lookout in future episodes for the return of Ms. Kerr. All right, let's move on to our first instrument, the flute.
Did you know that the flute and the piccolo are the only members of the woodwind family that don't use reeds? These are the little pieces of wood there that make the vibrating sound on the end of the instruments, called a reed. All the other wind instruments use either a single reed or a double reed, two of them vibrating together to create a sound. But a flute player blows air across a hole in one end of the flute, like this. They blow across the flute. This type of flute is known as the transverse flute. Instead of like a recorder, you blow this way. Well, because it's this direction, it's called transverse, okay? It has its roots in ancient Greece, and early examples have also been found in India and China and Japan. In 1847, Theobald Bohm, Bohm?
I would say Bohm.
I think you say Bohm, okay. I don't have much German experience. I'm guessing that's a German name. Demonstrated a revolutionary new type of flute at the Paris exhibition. This flute had a metal tube with numerous keys attached. The one we know, a very early version of what we know today. Previously, they were made out of wood, right? But this new metal one was a dramatic. With the earlier flutes, it was hard to get a note out of them, and the intervals between the notes had been variable. So Bohm's instrument was a dramatic improvement, however, and overcame these shortcomings. With his major refinements, Bohm essentially created the modern-day flute. So in this next video, you'll see both the flute and its mini-me, the piccolo, played to perfection. You'll also hear a familiar tune, The Stars and Stripes Forever by John Philip Sousa.
Hi, I'm musician first class Brittany Foster with the U.S. Navy Band, and I'm here to tell you why I love playing the flute so much. First, what is a flute? Well, a flute is a member of the woodwind family, and what makes it so special and unique within that family is that it is the only instrument to not rely on a reed to create its sound. Instead, to create a sound on the flute, we blow air across this teeny tiny tone hole right here. The flute has three parts. We have a head, a body, and a foot, which makes it pretty easy to remember what goes where. The flute also has a pretty wide range. I'll demonstrate our most practical range on the instrument, which begins with the B natural below the staff and goes over 4 octaves above that to a D natural. Woo, really, really high. One of my favorite parts about playing the flute and music in general is that in so many instances, music tries to tell a story. And we as musicians are fortunate enough that we sometimes get to portray some of these characters in the story. Oftentimes, the flute is a bird. So I thought I would play one of my favorite bird-like excerpts for you today, which is from Peter and the Wolf by Sergei Prokofiev. So pretty bird-like. The flute is also capable of making some pretty cool sound effects. Let's see if you can guess what sound effect I'm creating here. As you might have guessed, it was a train whistle, so pretty neat. As you can see, the flute can do so much more than you might expect of the instrument. Now, I definitely need to tell you about another very important member of the flute family, which is the piccolo. Fun fact, in Italian, piccolo means small, which makes sense as the piccolo is so much smaller than the flute. And I get to play this instrument a lot in my job with the Navy Band. In fact, at the end of nearly every concert, my section mates and I get to stand up in front of the band and play one of the most famous piccolo solos ever written, which happens to be from our nation's march, the Stars and Stripes Forever. So I thought, what better way to conclude this video than to play the solo for you. Enjoy. Thank you for watching, and I hope you'll enjoy playing the flute and piccolo just as much as I do. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Now, let's move on to the oboe. The oboe is one of two woodwind instruments in the band that use a double reed to make sound. Although the precise year when the oboe was invented is unknown, it is said to have originated sometime around 400 years ago in France. Of course, double reed instruments such as the reed flute were in use in Europe way before then. The shawm, which is an instrument that was played as long as 900 years ago, is one of the other instruments that can be considered ancestors of the oboe. Like several of the other woodwind instruments, improvements were made to the oboe in the mid-1800s. That's kind of a big time for woodwind instruments, and it made it more playable. More keys were added, and the design was refined into the version of the oboe used today. It has a huge range of sounds and colors, and is often used as a solo voice in an ensemble. You'll learn about the oboe and hear two famous orchestral oboe solos in this next video.
Hi, I'm Staff Sergeant Sarah Schramborg, and this is the oboe, another member of the woodwind family. As you can see, it looks very similar to the clarinet, but with one crucial difference. The oboe uses this, a double reed, which is two pieces of cane tied together. When I blow air into the reed, the two pieces of cane vibrate together to make a sound. Oboe reeds are very delicate and must be handled with care. Each reed is handmade, usually by the oboe player, and only lasts for a few days. The oboe has a rich, complex sound and is frequently used as a solo voice in band and orchestra because it has such a clear, emotive sound that carries over the ensemble. Because of its evocative sound, there are many beautiful solos in our repertoire. Here is one by Tchaikovsky. The oboe can also sound very exotic. Here is a solo from the Bacchanal from Samson and Delilah. And that's the oboe.